It's been a while since I've spoken to Sebastian Gorka. I go on his show in the United States of America quite a bit, but this is the first time we've had him on here for a while. He is, as I said, newly appointed member of the National Security Education Board. Let's say a very warm welcome. Sebastian, thank you very much for joining us. How are you?
I'm very well. Am I really talking to the leader of the Independent Republic of Mike Graham?
Well, not only that, but Belinda DeLucy yesterday, a former MEP for the Brexit Party, had a fantastic portrait done of me in full sort of regalia, military regalia. So I'm now kind of the generalissimo of the Independent Republic, and I've got that as my new Twitter picture. But listen,
does it show you crushing planks? I just need to know, are you crushing
yes,
planks?
Under
Mike?
my feet, absolutely, every single day. Many of them from the BBC, I have to say, who are getting closer and closer to oblivion as we speak. Now, listen, you were at the White House last night. What a fantastic setting. All of those flags. A great idea always for the president to show why he's the president, because he's actually in the White House. And what a contrast between that and Joe Biden in a mask.
Hiding in his basement.
Yeah.
I mean, could you have more of a dichotomy between the president of the United States, first time in our history? People forget this. In 2016, for the first time in the history of America, we chose somebody who wasn't a member of the swamp. From George Washington to Barack Obama, every single president for 44 presidents was either a retired general or a former congressman or governor. In 2016, just like Brexit, the American people sent a message to the swamp saying enough is enough, and we chose a non-politician to drain the swamp, as opposed to the other guy that the Democrats have chosen, who is an old white man who's been in politics, Mike, hang on a second, just get ready for this, for 47 years.
Yes.
He's the epitome of the swamp. And of course, he's hiding in his basement, Mike.
Yeah, and he's achieved pretty much nothing in those 47 years. As Donald said last night, here's a guy who took the money from the unions for years and years and years, decades, came all the way back to Washington with a big bag of money, and then sold it all off to the Chinese, who took their jobs.
Hang on a second, Mike. He did achieve quite a few things. So number one, his son, Hunter Biden, who was kicked out of the Navy for being a cokehead, when Biden was vice president to Obama, Hunter Biden flew with the vice president on Air Force Two to Beijing.
Yeah.
And after his daddy met with the communist premier of China, guess what? Hunter Biden landed a $1.4 billion with a B billion-dollar deal with the National Bank of Communist China. Despite the fact that he didn't have any background in investing or any background in Asia, and his brother, Biden's brother, with no background in construction or building, when his brother was vice president, won a multi-million-dollar contract for construction in Iraq. So, look, Biden's been great for Biden and his criminal clan.
Well, of course, I mean, people would make the same accusation about Donald Trump, wouldn't they? After Steve Bannon got arrested last week, he was one of many members of the former sort of Trump White House who have been in a little bit of trouble backwards and forwards with the law. So I suppose I would have to point that out just for the purposes of clarity.
You could do that, but I actually look at the indictment. I know Steve Bannon. I've read the 23-page indictment, and it's really telling. Number one, the FBI didn't want to touch this with a barge pole. It's the Southern District of New York, a rabidly left-wing prosecutor that brought the charge, along with investigators from the post office. And the fact that all the asset forfeiture at the end of the charge sheet has to do with Brian Colfage, the head of this so-called charity called Build the Wall, and none of it references Steve Bannon, makes me think it's more of a political hit job than anything else. But we shall see.
Certainly the timing, you'd have to say, is a little bit suspicious, wouldn't you? You know,
absolutely. They 68 days away from the election. 68
days away. Now, I mean, I don't know whether you've been following the amazing Meghan Markle saga as it goes, but she's obviously part of the major kind of Hollywood push for people to vote for Biden. A man who is so lacking in ideas that he once stole some in a speech by Neil Kinnock, one of the least successful politicians in history in this country.
Yeah, I live down the road from Neil Kinnock in Ealing. And, think about this. Biden was caught back in the 80s, Mike, in the 80s running for president.
Yeah.
And he gave a speech where he said, oh, when my dad came out of the coal mine, blah, blah, blah. Whole passages nicked from Neil Kinnock's speech. And he had to cancel, because of the plagiarism, he had to cancel his presidential campaign. How did people forget this? I mean, it's stunning. And now it's okay for him to run.
I know, it's absolutely remarkable, isn't it? And what is wrong as well with this Democratic Party, where you've got pictures now coming in from outside of Jeff Bezos's house of people putting up a guillotine, right, to try and apparently, execute one of the most successful men in the history of America. And when I lived in America, America stood for success. It stood for entrepreneurship. It stood for, come to this country, do the best that you can. We will embrace you. What's gone wrong?
I'll tell you what's gone wrong. I write about it in my book, The War for America's Soul. This is the apotheosis of 70 years of ideological indoctrination. Conservatives like me, I grew up under Maggie Thatcher. Reagan was a hero to me. We let these crazies take over the schools, the universities, and Hollywood until you get to this point where they hate America. This is the problem. Yeah. Look at the story of Donald Trump, Mike. 6 years ago, everybody wanted to be Donald Trump. He's doing cameos in movies like Home Alone. All the rap singers are talking about how they want to be like the great Donald. And what's his big sin? Oh, he runs as a conservative and wins, and suddenly he's the devil incarnate. This is the insanity of the left, which, look, has cities across America that they are running, Democrat cities that are on fire. That tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah, unless, of course, you're watching CNN, who don't seem to recognise fires when they're actually burning right behind them. I mean, talk about comical alley. I mean, what's happened to them?
Mostly peaceful. I mean, I miss Monty Python, but CNN comes a close second nowadays.
Well, we had the BBC doing the same thing here. We had a Black Lives Matter march, which ended up with people throwing bottles at a policeman on a horse, or a policewoman on a horse. The horse bolts, she gets knocked off the horse, ends up in hospital with a broken collarbone. They describe it as a mostly peaceful demonstration.
Why are you having Black Lives Matter marches in the UK? I grew up in the UK.
Yeah.
When I went to school, the bus driver was from Jamaica. My best mate his parents were Indian. I was surrounded by Polish families who'd come over during World War II. One of the most ethnically diverse countries in the world, like America. What the hell is going on?
I know. Well, it's the same. I mean, you're absolutely right. London, one of the most diverse cities in the world, where people come from all over the place. The same people who tell us that we have to be better at recognising minorities are the same people that tell us that we live in a racist country, who are the same people that tell us we have to welcome these people coming illegally here in dinghies from France because they want to live here. They're not coming here because we're racist. They're coming here because we're not racist.
Right. And isn't it funny how all the people making the biggest noise are middle class and white?
Of course.
Isn't that interesting, Mike?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, there's more white people on the Black Lives Matter march than you've seen in the history of Remainer marches. And also, funnily enough, they're all Remainers. You don't have the Brexit divide there. You have other things that divide your great country. But we have basically the Remainers who didn't want to leave the European Union, now don't want to leave their house because they're frightened of getting COVID-19 on the train, even though they're never going to get it. They're not frightened, however, to go on holiday. And they also want to take part in marches whenever they can, when Extinction Rebellion knock about telling us that the world is going to end in some giant fireball in 10 years' time. I mean, the world has gone completely bonkers, Sebastian.
Let's be clear. There's a great link between our two amazing countries. We have a man in office who is taking the fight to the unaccountable elite, and it's very, very close to what you guys did in the UK. There is no Donald Trump. There's no draining the swamp without 17 million Brits voting to leave the EU and stop the crypto socialists in Brussels from stealing your national identity. So look, there's without Brexit, we don't have the Trump phenomenon. So these two things are very closely tied, Mike.
Oh, they very much are. And also, you don't hear very much about the good things that Donald Trump has done. As he says, he's done more for the black community in the US of A than Barack Obama did in 8 years. He's also managed to somehow get Israel to be recognised by the United Arab Emirates, which nobody's ever been able to do. It's quite extraordinary how he doesn't get credit for the good stuff.
Well, of course not. I mean, you're living in an alternate universe if you're listening to the fake news industrial complex. Just look at what he did in the first few years of office. Revitalized NATO, built the wall, crushed ISIS, lowest unemployment since 1969, before I was born, highest employment for Hispanic and Black Americans in record keeping, and on and on and on. And now we have to take him out of office. Why? Because he's not Joe Biden, who's not fixed a problem in 47 years. But now Joe Biden, sleepy, creepy Beijing Biden, is going to fix things he didn't fix for 47 years. Let's stick to the real world.
Well, exactly right. But of course, as usual, Sebastian, the polls have got it wrong. They got it wrong 4 years ago. They'll get it wrong this year as well, no doubt. They've got Biden ahead in the polls. Who are they asking?
Look, put yourself, you've lived here, Mike, put yourself in the shoes of somebody who loves this country, voted for Donald Trump, is going to vote for him again, or somebody who's just come around, was a Democrat, wants to vote for the president. If a pollster rings you up, are you going to tell them in this age of cancel culture? I mean, ask Lawrence Fox. Are you going to tell them I'm voting for Donald Trump? Of course not. And here's a fascinating thing. Just a week ago, CNN, not exactly, Donald Trump's favorite network, CNN did a poll where they found in the last couple of weeks, Donald Trump has closed the gap with Biden by 10 points, by double digits. And you know what the embarrassing thing is? That happened after he named Kamala Harris as his vice president on the Democrat ticket. I mean, that's a slap in the face, but it tells you identity politics doesn't work. Imagine, have you ever been picked for a job, Mike, because of your gender and your skin color? Because that's what happened to Kamala Harris. Wouldn't you be disgusted if somebody said, "Hey, Mike, I like your skin color. I'm going to give you a job"?
Yeah. Unbelievable. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I was going to say, I mean, that whole kind of, obvious choice would be laughable in almost any other situation where, Joe Biden is immediately hiring the person who was the most horrible and most excoriating to him in a debate, when she basically told him he was worthless, useless, hopeless, and there was no point to his existence. Now she's his number two.
That's the left. A woman who was one of the first people to drop out of the race because she got zero, and I mean zero delegates.
Yeah.
A woman who put 1,500 black men in prison for smoking weed, and then in a radio interview last year laughed about her smoking pot herself. I mean, what kind of cynicism is that?
I know.
That's the left. That's who we have to beat in 68 days' time.
And how's that going to work between now and then? We're going to have some debates, I presume, if they can work out how to do them.
We don't know. Nancy Pelosi, in the last 24 hours, the Speaker of the House in Congress said, I don't think Joe should debate the president.
Oh, really?
Oh, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Why is that, Nancy? Is it because he can't remember who his wife is? He mixes up his wife with his sister.
Right.
He thinks the Super Tuesday elections are on Thursday.
Yeah.
Is it because he thinks China? He said on record, Mike, the rise of China is a good thing. A good thing.
Yeah. Well, there's no question that he would be destroyed by Donald Trump in a debate. I said last week, funnily enough, and it was only slightly with my tongue in my cheek, that the voice that they put out there as Joe Biden's acceptance speech voice was the Joe Biden voice of about 10 years ago. Not the one that you hear now, where he doesn't know where he is, where he doesn't know where he's standing, where he doesn't know who he's standing next to. That very thin kind of old man voice was suddenly replaced. And it's not beyond the realms of possibility that it was pre-recorded, is it?
Not at all. I mean, look at what the left's done in the past when it comes to fake news. But to your point, it's really interesting. If your listeners are really want to see how dangerous things have become on the left, watch a video of Biden now and watch a video of him 15 years ago when he was a senator. You see it right there. You see the dementia. You see the decline in cognitive capacity. This man is a shadow of himself. It's exactly as the president said last night. I was sitting there on the South Lawn watching him give the speech. He is a Trojan horse. He is an empty shell. And he's a Trojan horse for all the radicals, the extremists like AOC, like Bernie Sanders, who, by the way, another amazing thing, Bernie Sanders, a man who honeymooned in the Soviet Union when it was the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought of taking your
Well,
honeymoon in
the
a
only
communist
the only story that reminds me of, Sebastian, is Jeremy Corbyn, who took Diane Abbott on the back of a motorcycle to East Berlin before the wall came down. Can you imagine what sort of a great time they must have had?
Yeah. Leave me out of that one, please. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So tell us about this new appointment that you've been made, member of the National Security Education Board. That's congratulations are in order.
Cheers, thank you. Yeah, the president nominated me, and I was appointed 2 weeks ago. So he's a very loyal guy, and I appreciate that. So I served as strategist in his White House. Now I have my national radio show called America First Every Day, which you will be on later.
I will.
Mike.
That's true.
And then he decided to to recognize my work in counterterrorism, to make me a presidential appointee on the National Security Education Board, which makes sure that our colleges, our think tanks provide us the expertise we need for the intelligence community, for our military. Very excited to get back to work in the Trump administration.
Great stuff. And any danger for you, Sebastian, that Trump doesn't win? What does he need to do to make sure that he does?
I think he doesn't need to do anything more than he's already doing, because the last 4 nights of the convention, I mean, stunning, from the widow of that black police captain who was murdered by the rioters last night to that nun who spoke about 23 years in the army as a surgeon, then became a nun, and how we have the most pro-life president in the history of the United States. We have an amazing story to tell. The job is now upon us, like it was for you guys under Brexit. Everybody has to go out there and vote. Everybody has to get their uncle, their grandpa to the polling stations to vote in 68 days' time, because we really, we've got a nation to save here again.
Sebastian Gorka, brilliant to talk to you. Great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Former strategist to President Trump, back in the administration now, giving us the good news that those of us who like Donald Trump and who think he's doing a pretty good job want to hear. That is, he's going to get another 4 years in 68 days' time.